If you enjoy this video, please remember to subscribe if you haven't already. And if you like what you see on my channel and would like to support me on Patreon, click on the link below. Saturn III was a science fiction film faced with many problems during production, and the film would be one of the biggest failures at the box office in 1980. The film was written and conceived by director John Barry, who had a bold idea for a science fiction film. Originally, John Barry worked as production designer and art director on films like Star Wars in 1977 and Superman, the movie, in 1978. John Barry would make his directorial debut with Saturn III. Director Stanley Donen, who was mostly known for his work on musicals throughout the golden years of MGM, was hired as producer. Donen was not a fan of science fiction, but he was impressed enough with John Barry's enthusiasm for the genre. Producer Donen saw that more work was needed on the script to attract studio interest, so screenwriter Martin Amis was hired to fix the script. Amis was drawn to the project mainly because he was an avid reader and fan of science fiction. The original script, The Helper, was much better in comparison to the final script used for the film.
Now, an interesting story. The title of that, before I started, was The Helper.
The Helper.
And it was very interesting. It was about a manufactured robot who fell in love because he felt the emotions of the man who had made him. And it was very interesting, the script, before we started.
And then all of a sudden,
I don't know what happened.
Saturn III is set on Titan, the third moon of Saturn, and is about a couple who are food research scientists living on the Titan research station, whose lives are thrown into chaos after the arrival of a psychopath and his 8-foot robot, Hector. John Barry remarked prior to filming, "In Saturn III, the science considerations are all responsible. People don't do anything that isn't possible. It's very much about real people." In 1978, producer Stanley Donen presented the Martin Amis draft of the script to English movie mogul Lord Lew Grade, who was impressed, and Lew Grade and his production company, ITC Entertainment, would produce the film, and it was Grade's intent for the production to cash in on the success of films like Alien, and it was also hoped that star Farrah Fawcett would be a major draw for a teenage male audience. Much of the film would have Fawcett dressed in revealing outfits. Kirk Douglas was cast in the lead role. He accepted the role because he was intrigued with the concept of Saturn III, and he remarked, "These days, I only do movies that excite me. I'm looking for a challenge, something new, and the idea behind this film is so fresh, so different to anything else I've been offered in the realm of science fiction." Actor Harvey Keitel was cast in the role of Benson. Keitel was at this time a hot new talent and rising star, known for his tough acting style in films like Mean Streets and Taxi Driver. However, Keitel was not the first choice for the role of Benson. Originally, they were thinking of casting Sean Connery. Stuart Craig, who was John Barry's assistant on Superman the movie, was hired as production designer on the film. The interior of the Titan research station in the movie had to be impressive looking, and the construction of the Saturn III set in Shepperton Studios outside London took 79 craftsmen, and it would be one of the largest self-contained sets ever constructed in England. It occupied the entire area of Shepperton Studios, taking up A and B stages, which were comprised of stretch walls at 280 feet across, the 120-foot wide stages. The set was so vast, in fact, with its maze of connecting tunnels, the crew found themselves continually getting lost during the first few weeks of filming. To rectify this, a diagram of the set was drawn up and posted at the soundstage entrance to help the crew find their way around the studio.
Stuart Craig was the designer, and we had some wonderful futuristic sets. Long, curved tunnels made of a kind of black plastic material, which, offered all sorts of dramatic setups. And this is all supposed to be in a space station in the future.
Oscar winner Colin Chilvers was hired as mechanical effects supervisor and would construct the robot Hector for the film. The robot was actually based on the anatomical drawings of Leonardo da Vinci, The 8-foot robot took 2 years to perfect and cost over $1 million. There were constant problems during production to get the robot to work the way they wanted him to work for the film, which caused the film to go well behind schedule.
The robot was a big guy in a suit with all kinds of antennae popping out and all of a really weird costume. And it turned out to be a nightmare every time we had to do a shot with the robot because it took so long to put it all together.
Farrah Fawcett said of the robot, "I was terrified of Hector. I don't think anything mechanical could be so frightening. Hector's over 8 feet tall with electronic clamps for hands and laser beam eyes waving around on stalks. When you see him grabbing me by the wrists and lifting me off my feet, I wasn't just acting scared, I was scared." They had a team of 20 men controlling the robot's every movements on and off stage. Occasionally there would be somebody inside the robot. 2 weeks into shooting, John Barry left the production and was replaced by Stanley Donen as director. Donen said John knew nothing about staging a scene and had no idea how to handle actors.
I was getting on very well with John Barry, and very visual as you imagine with a production designer. And things were looking good. And we'd been shooting for 2 weeks, and Monday morning we were called onto the set to be told that the director had been replaced and that the producer was now going to direct the picture. And the producer was Stanley Donen. Really nice man, but it wasn't his cup of tea. I mean, he was a director of musicals, Singing in the Rain and things like that. And directing this robot wasn't exactly like directing Gene Kelly.
After Barry left, he went to work on The Empire Strikes Back, which was being shot at the same time as Saturn III. Barry said of working on Empire Strikes Back at Elstree Studios, "It's such an exciting set to work on, and it's wonderful being with old friends again." Sadly, after only 2 weeks of working on Empire, John Barry collapsed on set and was admitted to hospital. He was diagnosed with a rare form of meningitis. He passed away at 2 a.m. the following morning. He was only 43 years old. Stanley Donen was dissatisfied with a number of things. Firstly, actor Harvey Keitel's Brooklyn accent needed to be redubbed. However, during post-production, Keitel would refuse to take part in post-production looping, so his voice was overdubbed with the voice of a British actor, Roy Dotrice. Secondly, throughout production, there were many script changes. At one stage, there was even no script, and every scriptwriter in town had to put uncredited work into the script. Thirdly, they were still having problems getting the robot to work the way they wanted him to work. Stanley Donen said, "The robot cost a lot more than we expected. It was slower to photograph than we thought it would be, and when John couldn't finish directing the picture, that took time. There were also problems in wardrobe with Harvey Keitel's spacesuit, and Kirk Douglas was difficult, making many demands on set. He also had an obsession with appearing naked, even at the age of 63. At one point, Douglas would demand Farrah Fawcett take her clothes off. During the production of Saturn III, ITC Entertainment was also producing the film Raise the Titanic. The film, like Saturn III, would also go over schedule and over budget and would fail at the box office, resulting in the production of Saturn III being cut back. And much of Elmer Bernstein's score was removed and re-edited due to a few scenes getting cut out of the film due to their sexual violent nature. These scenes, a number of years later, would be restored. The full score was released as a very limited edition CD in 2008, which is now deleted. A fantasy sequence featuring Farrah Fawcett in a skimpy PVC jumpsuit was filmed, but not used. But the stills in these edited scenes were used extensively in the promotion of the film. Sadly, only a few scenes directed by Barry remained in the final cut of the film. Saturn III was released in 1980 and failed miserably. Lew Grade even pre-sold the film to NBC for $4 million to help lower the film's losses. Audiences didn't understand the film and thought it was just too far out and weird. Film critic Roger Ebert gave the film 1 star, criticizing its screenplay for having a shockingly low level of intelligence. disregarding the laws of physics, and put down the love triangle plot between Douglas, Fawcett, and Keitel, and critics would criticize the wooden acting. Saturn III was a train wreck of a film with a very poor script, which needed to be rewritten countless times. I do, however, like the look of the film, and the robot Hector is one of the most terrifying robots on screen. The film does have many unsettling moments in it, which add to the dark atmosphere of the film. Also, I've actually never liked Farrah Fawcett as an actress, and she always seems to come across in movies as your routine airhead. Granted, maybe I have never seen the full extent of her acting abilities in other films, so maybe I'm being unfair. Saturn III is really a difficult film to explain. It's just a bizarre movie. Stanley Donen is a good director, but is a little bit out of his range as a science fiction director. The main reason for this is because he had no love for science fiction. He did, however, get this film given to him to finish after director John Barry left the project, and it's difficult when the film isn't really yours to begin with. Saturn III was really a wasted opportunity and wasn't exactly the sci-fi blockbuster its makers might have hoped for, and the film has become one of the great oddities of science fiction films in the early 80s. Although I'm sure Saturn III does have its fans. My name's Jonathan Bark. Thanks for watching.